Good morning and happy Friday. Um, Thank you for joining for another session of Azure Power Lunch. Today we're going to talk about Azure Storage. So let me first share my screen. Okay. And folks, if you don't mind, if you are not asking any questions, if you can mute your phone, I will really appreciate it. So everybody can see my screen. Is it right? Okay, that's good. Okay. So, you know, it's always a good idea. I'm not going to put it in a presentation mode because I don't have any animations. So first of all, topic of today, as usual, Azure Storage updates. And this is a blurb about myself. If you want to know more about it, I'm an Azure Cloud Solution Architect with Microsoft. So um, what, it's a good idea to go over some of the services. As you know, Azure Storage is one of Azure's core service. It's a service that's available in all region. It was the one of the kind of a foundational services with compute and networking, and it's always a good idea to kind of um, you know do an overview of updates, what have happened so far in a more recent past, about what are the recent updates, to know more about the service, because sometime, as new services are coming online, we kind of start putting aside some of the things that are available and some of the innovations that are happening in existing services. And so it's a good idea to know about them. So just quick overview of Azure Storage. This is uh, a service that has kind of a multiple facets. You have the disk storage, which is built on top of blobs. Two type of blobs. What are page blobs, which are mainly disk, and block blobs, which are kind of object storage. Then you have file storage, which is right now you can share them as an SMB. And I think it's public knowledge that soon we're going to be doing the NFS mounts as well, made them available as well. So you will have them available to share. In regards to the hybrid storage, you have Azure File Sync. So you can sync your on-prem file system into the cloud, back them up. And of course, if you want to move large amounts of data, then you have Azure Import, Export, and Data Box available to move that data around. So this is kind of a quick overview of some of the services. And we are going to be focusing more on the top three: disk, object, and file storage. And one service, I'm not sure if I mentioned, Azure NetApp Files. This is, once again, I want to repeat, this is a first-party service which provides you access to NetApp. And this is not a virtualized NetApp. We are hosting NetApp hardware in our Azure data center, providing you a first party service. So you don't have to bring any licenses, you don't have to have any existing agreements. You just, if you need those services, you can access it. And this is for the very low latency workloads. So this is kind of a high level diagram once again, I mean, where everything sits. You have the storage, and then you have kind of application accessing it. On the right hand side, different families of kind of Microsoft services, from edge to storage ecosystems and all. Okay, so first of all, let's quickly talk about what is the underlying architecture of Azure Storage. So this is just to know like how the replication happens. This is a bit of how the sausage is made. You have Azure front end, which is basically, that's where your request first comes in and hits the front end. That's where we do metering, throttling, authentication. That's where it happens. If it's not successful, you don't go any further. Then the partition layer, where basically we spread this data out to different partitions, which is spread across different servers, different racks, and things like that. And then comes the streaming layer, which is responsible for replications. So that's basically does the replication inside a region and replication across the region, replication across zones, things like that. So this is kind of a high level architecture on which this storage service is built on top of. Okay, now let's quickly talk about what are different type of, and this is one thing, this is kind of a very important to understand what are different services and kind of in terms of price versus um, uh, the value that we are getting or the redundancy requirement that we have to meet. You have locally redundant, which creates 3 replicas. And just keep in mind, these 3 replicas are in the same region and in the same data center. Okay, so this is one thing to keep that in mind. Just as if you have attended, joined us for a previous session about Azure Global Infrastructure, as we said, Azure region is the is the high level scope. Then you have zones with separate power supply and separate network provider, and then you have data center sitting in that zone. Even if you don't have zones, oh, sorry, please, whoever is sharing, please stop sharing. Sorry, guys. So each uh, data center, even if that region doesn't have any zones, it will still have multiple data centers inside it. So your storage lives inside a data center in the case of locally redundant. In the case of zone redundant, it will be replicated across different zones. So then once again, you get high availability. Then you have read access geo redundant, which is 3 replicas in one region, 3 replicas in a region 300 miles apart. Okay, so that's your uh, further providing you high availability and all. Okay, finally you have read access, and that's a kind of a large acronym to pronounce. Kind of read access geo zone redundant storage, where you have 6 copies. In each region, you have zone redundancy available. And as you can see, the cost is lowest for LRS and it goes highest for GAZRS, RAGAZRS. And that's where you have to look at your workloads. Does it make sense to have read access geo redundant, or just locally redundant works fine? And this is a quick table. I just put it in this a slide deck that I will be sharing. This is a quick table to understand what services, what are kind of the durability of objects that is available. So as you can see, for the locally redundant, the durability is 11 nines. This is basically, you know, objects in a given year. It's kind of, it's a matrix like, how, what is the probability of of kind or of an object for being durable for the entire year. That's 11 nines, the way we are providing, and it goes up to 16 nines as we go across the, across to GAs, RAGAs, ZRS or GZRS, globally redundant, zone redundant storage. So that's goes way high up. So this is something that we have to keep in mind in regards to it. And one other thing I want you to pay attention to, it's that not every service is available in this. For example, premium storage, if you want to use premium file storage, it does not support geo redundant, not at this point. Same thing if you want to use um, kind of um, uh, you know, GPv2. GPv2 is available for all of these. So this is some of the things that you, and in terms of SLA, of course, LRS has SLA of 99.9%. On the other hand, um, you know, um, GZRS has an SLA of 99.999%. So this is some of the things that you have to keep in mind as you are doing this and as you're building your application on top of the storage. Any questions so far? Okay, so let me quickly move on to this slide. Okay, so we looked at different storage type. Now, in terms of redundancy, now let's look at in terms of latency, what are different storage types that are available. You have premium storage, which is based on SSD. This storage is for low latency, high throughput, highly transaction workloads. That's where you need to access data really, really fast. Your databases or file shares of that sort, that's where you want to use it. Then you have hot, which is basically our standard storage based on SSDs. Once again, this is for um, those workloads like tests, kind of a cloud native application data where throughput does not have very high IOPS, okay, or not guaranteed IOPS. Cool. That's where you want to store data. Maybe you need it every month, once a month, you know. That's where cool storage comes in. As you can see there, as we move from premium, hot, cool, the price is going down, but the transaction price is going up. Okay, so that's where you may want to kind of, based on the price, you may be tempted to quickly move to the cool storage, but then you realize that that data is um, kind of accessed very often. So you go with, you decide, oh my God, basically any savings that you had in regards to the cool storage pricing, basically you lost those savings when you move on, when you access that data very often. And of course, we have the archive, which is basically behind the scene. We have tape backups, and that storage is the cheapest, but the transaction cost. Basically, you have to ask, you have to kind of request for the data before your data becomes available. So just keep that in mind on those tiers. And the way you move data from, you can move data from hot, cool, archive is through storage lifecycle. We will take a look at it in a second. And basically you can put limits saying, okay, after this, move this data into, after this much time, if this blob is not accessed, move it to cool tier. And after this time, if this top blob is not accessed for that much period, move it into archive. So that's how you kind of transition those into different tiers. Okay. So this is kind of lifecycle management, and we will take a look at it in the demo. Yeah, this is kind of how it looks like. Let me just quickly. Okay, so let's talk about some of the high performance capabilities that we have introduced. We have the Ultra Disk, which is now GA. That is for um, kind of a very, very low latency. We are talking about sub-millisecond latency and very, very high IOPS. Like your mission critical workload like SAP HANA, excuse me, those type of workloads, that's where this disk kind of will mostly be used. This is your Ultra Disk. Premium blobs and premium files. So there was a big ask, like people want to use premium files. Um, Standard files didn't have the IOPS kind of supported to meet certain workload requirements. So that's where premium files comes into picture. They provide, once again, kind of low latency, and you can actually provision IOPS in that, and of course, premium blob storage, which is storage based on blob storage based on premium blob. So that's some of the things that have kind of recently been announced. This is some of the, so let's, one big thing that's coming, and I think I alluded to it, which is NFS v3. It is currently in limited public preview. So if you, and let's take a look at it. Let's create a storage account and you will see an option for the, I mean, and look at different options that come up. So what I'm going to do is, come on, let's create a new storage account. And please feel free to ask if you have any questions. Okay. And I'm going to use East US2. And this is two. Okay. So first of all, you have the option standard premium. And so I cannot look at the, you know, on the window itself. So if you have any question, please feel free to ask, open your mic up. So if we do, like, if we have East US2, you have storage V2, but let's say if I use, and you can use blob access geo-redundant, but let's say if I use premium storage, look, the only option has is locally redundant. So just like we discussed, as we go through this UI, you can see what different options are available. If you just want to use premium storage, once again, only locally, I mean, that's where you have locally geo-redundant, read access geo-redundant options available. There's no zone redundant option available. But once again, if we go here, that's where all the 6 options are available. So let's go with this, and let's go next. Let's go to the advanced tab. Okay, look at this. These are all secure transfer, of course, ability to access this data over HTTPS. That's a big requirement. If you want to use large file share, these are 100 terabyte. You have to enable those once you have, um, kind of, and this upgrade is permanent. So this is what they're describing. Soft delete of blob. So if you want to do a soft delete, so if you delete a blob accidentally, it doesn't stay deleted, and it kind of stay there for like a certain amount of time, and then it will be deleted permanently. So that's what it is. Of course, data lake storage v2, that's hierarchical namespacing and all that you can enable it. And then you have NFS v2. Right now, I don't have that enabled, but this is the link. You can go to this link and enable it. So you have to request it. What you will have to do is you will have to go and request it, and kind of this is, and you will have to ask for, what they will do is they will give you access to it, and it will open your subscription for number one, NFS 4.1 support for Azure files. So you will have NFS 4.1 support for your Azure file shares. Okay. Right now, they only support SMB. Keep in mind. And what they will do is with that, they will also add support for NFS 3.0, version 3.0 for your Azure blobs. So you can access Azure blobs over an NFS protocol network. So this is some of the things. So once it will take some time to get that whitelisting, and then you will be able to access that. Go ahead. Any questions? Okay. Okay, let's go back here. So once again, we do that. And I want to go here on the previous tab on networking. Networking storage has all the options available. I think we have talked about private link before. And I think Mario had a session, Mario Lopez from the product team, talk about how you can set up private link for storage. So this is basically allows you to, Azure Storage allows you to do not only private link, but also service endpoints. So service endpoints were available before, private link is available now. So what I can do is I can open my storage account from all networks. I can open it only for specific networks. Let's say I want to pick this Bastion VNet and I want to select this particular, I can do that. Or if I want to create a private endpoint to this storage, I can do that. What will happen is my storage account, and just to kind of give a 2-minute overview, with private link for Azure Storage, you will be able to access your storage account over a private IP address. It will no longer be available over public IP. Okay, just keep that in mind. This allows you further secure your storage account, allow access it, and if that VNet where you create that private endpoint for your storage account, if it is accessible from on-prem, you will be able to access that storage endpoint from on-prem as well. So you will be able to access that storage account called all the storage API from on-prem as well. So this is very important to keep in mind. So let's say that you have some applications that are running on-prem that want to move data securely over to a storage account. What you can do is create a private link to that storage account to a VNet which is connected to on-prem through a private link or um, you know through a private link or something similar to like let's say, ExpressRoute or site-to-site VPN. And then what you can do is you can move this data in and out of that storage account, move through over a private tunnel. So this kind of makes it uh, provide further security to your storage account. Okay. I think we have only 5 minutes remaining, so I'm just gonna quickly go through. Let me see if there are any other slides remaining. And by the way, I will share the slide deck. Any other questions? Okay. So in regards to the Blob API, we already have the hierarchical APIs through ADLS v2. We have the Blob API, which is kind of just which that we started with. We'll soon have the NFS v3, the ability to access the blob through NFS v3 storage. So that's another thing that will be available very, very soon, where you will be able to access that data, uh, over through NFS. So that's going to be something that's coming and there are some stuff which is not very recent, but it's there, and you can definitely take a look at it and see if if kind of if useful for you. I just put it there. Um, any other questions? Any comments, feedback?
Hey, just one question on this NFS v3. Is that the NetApps file system?
No. Okay, let's be very clear on that. That is separate thing. Azure NetApp files, it's a separate offering. Okay, it comes under Azure Storage umbrella, but it is not Azure Files. It is Azure NetApp Files. This is a first-party offering which provides you NetApp hardware underneath. Okay. And this one is providing an NFS head over Blob as well as Azure Files. So they are both different.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. And just keep in mind that you will have, they both serve different purposes. Azure NetApp is useful where you need very low latency. Okay. We are talking about 1 to 2 millisecond latency. That's where you want to use Azure NetApp files and kind of a high throughput workloads. On the other hand, Azure Files NFS service probably will be where you have large data storage, but latency is not, I mean, you don't need that low of a latency, 1 or 2 milliseconds. So that's where they both have their kind of places in the architecture. It's not that one thing replaces the other. Okay. Any other question? Okay. So folks, if there are no other questions, I will close the call today, and I hope everybody has a great weekend, and I hope to see everyone in a future session next Friday. And I will upload the video to our YouTube channel. Please, if you want to watch it on demand there. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.